So I'm going to talk about connecting with the world, with the environment. Before I do that, we're all going to learn a dance move. Which is good because Petra talked about the dance and conditions, so we're going to do a dance. So this is the Avalokiteshvara dance, and which I learned in India, right? You can think of it as a Bollywood dance move even. Okay. So the 1,000 arms of Avalokiteshvara, he's holding to his heart the jewel, as Bodhinath talked about, okay? So this is about the duty to, this is about looking after ourselves, connecting with ourselves, okay? Then, in this version, he's got 4 arms around him, okay? So these are arms sort of coming out of his body, and they're connecting with others around us, with our community, okay? So that's connecting to others. And then he's got 1,000 arms which are going out into the world, connecting with the world. So the dance move goes, myself, others, the world. Okay, should we just try that again? Myself, others, the world. Hooray! Wow, I only thought that just now, and I thought, it's a risk, but I'll take it. So I didn't think of the dance move, I knew that, but I thought, see what I mean. Okay, so connecting with the world. So if we go back to Friday morning, which might seem a long time ago, okay, so Friday morning before the retreat started. And there I was in a certain state of anxiety, because there had been a lot of, will we go to Lockabrook, won't we? Will it snow, won't it? And the whole uncertainty was really doing my head in, actually. Usually, as you'll know, Suryamati organises in her fantastically capable and calm way. But she's taken some time off, and I was kind of, to some extent, not completely, but having to try and step into that space, which I was anxious about as well. And I was anxious about what would it be like if it was at Lockabrook and it was difficult conditions, what would it be like if it were here? And just the uncertainty of not knowing, I was very difficult with. Anyway, so I woke up on Friday morning, and I sleep in an attic room, and I can see that I've got those kind of, those windows you have in an attic that are kind of in the ceiling. And I could see they were covered with snow. So I knew the answer to my question was definitely we weren't going to go to Lockabrook. But I then got into a whole load of anxiety because there were various women, Jill and Denise and Anne, who were going shopping that morning for a lot of the food. And of course I didn't know at that stage, were they actually going to be able to get the food? How much food should we buy? How many people were going to come on the retreat? It was all really unclear to me. And I was kind of, I was upstairs thinking about this. Anyway, then I got a text from Sally actually. And Sally's text said, "What a beautiful morning." And I just thought, I'm going to go and look out the window. And I looked out the window, and it was indeed a beautiful morning. All that snow, although causing me personally some inconvenience and anxiety, it was really beautiful. So thank you very much. So that basically sums up what connecting with the world is. It's getting out of all those stories, all that thinking about, and seeing what is actually going on. And often that is very beautiful. And I think it's moving. So Sangha Night, who is the founder of our Buddhist movement, our Buddhist community, he talks about moving from the utilitarian to the aesthetic. And I think there's a really very profound truth, actually, in that, moving from the utilitarian to the aesthetic. And the story that he gives is he used to live in Kalimpong in India, and he was out walking about, and there were some beautiful trees. And he met a Nepalese friend of his and said to the friend, what a beautiful tree. And the Nepalese friend said, yeah, you could cut that down and make loads of firewood out of that. It's fantastic, isn't it? And actually, I feel a bit of sympathy for the Nepalese friend, because perhaps he wanted to keep warm, so it's kind of fair enough that he wanted the tree. But you can see the difference. So there's one which is beautiful tree. The other is, I want, what can I get out of this tree? What can it do for me? What can it do for me? So I think the kind of spiritual truth about it is moving from the utilitarian to the aesthetic, is moving for the, what can it do for me? What can you do for me? What can I get out of this situation? What's it going to give me to the, what can I give to the situation? How can I participate in the situation? And Actually, it's interesting that you said about like all these three joined together, actually, these three ways of looking at the world. But I just thinking that actually, this is to do with people, but if you are in a situation, you can either be going, what can you give to me, or what can I give? But actually, even if you're thinking, what can I give, that doesn't mean you have to do anything. Do you see what I mean? Because I think the other way of not doing anything in a situation is trying to do it all. So it's a bit like you can be in a situation and doing what's needed, not kind of thinking you have to do it all. Anyway, that's probably a message to me, actually, from this weekend. But I thought I needed to say that. Anyway, sorry, I shall move onwards. Yeah. So I think I really learned sort of about this attitude of engaging with the world when a couple of years ago I went on a pilgrimage to India. And we went to visit a whole load of a few bricks in the ground. You kind of go to these places and there's a few bricks and a bit of grass, maybe, if you're lucky. And you kind of like walking into it, kind of going, okay. And I realised that I was going with a tourist attitude. And that's the way that we often approach the world, because the tourist attitude is you walk into someone and you go, impress me? Come on then. You know, give me the experience that I want. You know, I'm looking for the biggest mountain, the deep whatever. Do you see what I mean? It's like, you know, the most amazing monument, the whatever. That's the tourist attitude, and that's how we often live in life. It's like, come on, impress me life. The pilgrim attitude is you go and you know the history of it, and you go to participate and engage with it. Okay? You're part of it. You're not separate from it. You are connected to what's going on. And I was thinking this morning, actually, it's a bit like, what would it be like to live your whole life in pilgrimage? To live your whole life as if you were. Part of my Shadasa doesn't have to. But to live your life. The reason I'm laughing is because Mike Shadasa organises pilgrimages and does a lot of work, and he knows how hard it is to be behind the back scenes, making sure that everyone's got their bus and the food and all that stuff. So he doesn't have to be on pilgrimage all the time. But I suppose to have that attitude of like, what would it be like to be a pilgrim in your life, where you're visiting holy places and you're engaging with the holiness, with the sacredness of the world all the time. So, because actually it's interesting that we need to connect with the environment at all, that we need to think that we do, because the disconnection we may feel with our environment it's a kind of trick of our consciousness, it's an illusion. Because what are we apart from being part of the environment? And there's a quote I really like from a song, actually, from a musician called Moby, which is, you know, we are all made of stars. We are truthfully all made of stars. I looked it up, and apparently the carbon we all have in our bodies, it was created in stars 45 billion years ago. And that same carbon has been doing the rounds ever since. So like an atom of me that's got carbon in was once, I don't know what it's been doing for 45 billion years, but it's been doing some amazing things in that time. You know, it's been kind of coming together in all sorts of forms, going away in all sorts of other forms. And, you know, who knows where these bits of me have been before? Who knows where bits of the floor have been before? It's like, actually, we are made of exactly the same material as the environment. What else could we be? Where would we come from? We are the same as the environment, but we sort of act as if we're not in some way. And there's a practice that we do on our ordination training retreat, and then sometimes afterwards, called the 6 element practice, which you might have done perhaps some form of it, where we look at what we're made of. So we look at the qualities we have within us. So we have warmth and cold, which we call the element fire. We have liquid, the element water, for instance. So we look at these different parts of us, and we think, where do they come from? We really reflect hard on where do they come from. So for instance, within me, there's a certain sense of structure, of kind of stability from my bones. But where does that come? Well, it comes from calcium that has come presumably from milk that I've drunk, that then passes through me. When I die, my bones will rot away. What am I apart from the environment? And it's a really powerful thing to do that practice if you ever get the chance, because you really get a sense that there's just a flow of conditions going on which happen to be saturated shaped for this period of time and are moving all the time. And it's not just over the length of my life. You know, the water that I drank, the cup of tea that I had just now will soon be passing out of my system. It's like, you know, there's just a flow of things going on. We are our environment. So I think connecting with our environment, we just somehow click into the fact that we are part of it. And as Vidania said yesterday, you know, a really good way to do that is spending more time in nature and doing physical activity. I think for me, doing physical activity is a really important way to realise, you know, how much I am part of my environment. Because I can lead a life where it's like, you know, I get in a car, I sit behind a computer. It's like, you know, my clothes get washed in a washing machine. I do very little kind of physical work which links me. And when I do, it's amazing how rewarding I find it, actually. Okay, so the next part of my talk is just, stop, look, listen. So, did you learn that when you were crossing the road? Stop, look, listen. I think ours was something like stop, look, listen both ways. No, stop, listen, look both ways. Was it?
Stop at the curb, look right, look left, or something.
Something like that. Anyway, stop, look, listen. So, I just think in life, it's a bit like the more we can do of stop, looking, listening, the better, really. And apologies to everyone who's heard this before, but I did take up the practice of, as well as working at the Buddhist Centre, I work down in the middle of town, and I walk through from Sharrow into town most days. And I walk through really run-down industrial estates, dual carriageway, underpass, really not very beautiful places. And I was getting really bored with it, particularly, you know, on a kind of November morning when it's dark and just really grim. So I took up this practice of stop, look, listen. And I'd just stop and I'd look around, and without forcing it, just notice what was going on. And it was amazing how beautiful things that I thought were ugly were. So for instance, I'd catch light on a car, you know, on the bonnet of a car, just kind of reflecting off the shape of the bonnet of a car. And I'm not into cars, it's not like that's a particular, and it's just really beautiful. Or one time looking, and I suddenly noticed something I'd never seen before, which was a patch of blue paint just on a wall randomly, that was really beautiful. And it was just amazing that by bringing my awareness out of my story about anxiety about work and how horrible it was in November in Sheffield and all this stuff, and actually looking how much beauty there was in my environment, in this urban decaying environment, actually. So I think that even in what seems ugly, we can connect with the environment and we can find beauty. And of course, in beautiful places, as Vidania said yesterday, well, some of our most I think memorable and powerful experiences can happen in those places if we allow ourselves to take them in. Many years ago, I went on a walking holiday in Patagonia, and we walked a long way up a mountain, and it was quite snowy and everything, all very difficult. Got to the top, and there was this amazing great lake with icebergs in, and the clouds cleared and you could see 3 granite peaks going right up into the sky. I mean, it was extraordinary, you know. And it was sitting there, and a young woman had got there just before me, and she literally looked at it like this, turned round like this to her friend, so she had the back to the view and went, do you know, after this I'm heading up to Canada and I'm going to see some mountains there. And I was just like, that is so extraordinary that you can she's obviously ticking. It's like, seen the granite peaks of Patagonia, tick. Now, got to get myself to Canada and see that. So it was just like how we can, even in beautiful places, we can bring a state of mind to it, which I suppose is tourist rather than pilgrim, actually. It's like, you know, we're ticking it off. We're not appreciating the sacredness, the glory of it all. Yeah. And the last thing I'm going to finish with, because when I was thinking of this, I was thinking about connecting with the environment. So that's everything that isn't sentient, I suppose. So does that mean everything that's dead? Well, it's interesting, because Sangha writes about how he encouraged us to develop a sense of a living world, that mountains are living, that seas are living, that the earth is living. And I was really pleased when I came across that, actually. He talks about how, for most humans throughout our time evolving and most of our early history, and probably in most places around the world now, actually, there is a sense in which people see the world as alive. So they will see spirits living in trees, in mountains, in rocks, and they will see it as alive. And they will deal with it in that way as if it's alive. And I think I've always felt a bit like that about the world, actually, but I've kind of kept it to myself. So I remember I used to, sometimes I still go walking up onto Kinder, and there are lots of little lovely streams that come down off Kinder. And they're the kind of streams where if there's any sunshine, it catches the water, beautiful sounds, they kind of ripple like this. And I always used to linger a little bit when I went there because I got this sense of really friendly spirits. I used to kind of just really have this strong sense that there were these lovely friendly spirits there who were very friendly to me, actually. Very pleased that I'd come to see their little stream. And I didn't used to really talk about it very much. And then when I read the stuff by Sangha Night that he'd been writing, I thought, well, actually, that is how we as humans do engage with the world most of the time. And so I kind of now try and encourage that. I do my stop, look, listen when I remember, and just try and take in, what's the kind of feeling in this place? How does it feel to me? So when I do that, it's like the world, sometimes it feels scary, of course. Sometimes those spirits are not necessarily friendly little ones. But there's a sense in which the world is alive, and I'm engaged with a live world. And I think, in terms of connecting with the environment, it's obvious to all of us that us humans have done some pretty unpleasant things to our environment. And the more that we're able to see the environment as alive, the less likely we are to do that, actually, because we're going to be engaging with a living presence. So I suppose by connecting with the environment, we start to see it in a much more magical and much more living way. And as Vedana said yesterday, we can start to connect with the mystery, the magic of reality that we live in.